For lesson 7, we're going to be talking about using text in your design. So let's start off there. So what we're going to do is kind of talk about different things you can do with text in Photoshop. I'm going to show you how it affects the Creative Cloud, and then we're going to do a little logo design. You will need to download the files that I put on the module for this lesson, okay? So first, let's start off just taking a look at Photoshop. So when you're in Photoshop and you're using text, you're going to have two text tools right here that you would use a majority of the time. Actually, one that you'll use most of the time, one that you would use occasionally. So the first one is going to be the horizontal type tool. That means you're going to type from left to right. You also have the vertical type tool, which is going to have you type from top to bottom. You do have the options up here on the top when you're on the type tool to be able to switch those right here as well. So if you type one way and decide you want it to flip it, you can do that. Okay. Now let's take a look at the actual character panel. So again, whenever you're on a tool, you're going to have the option panel up here. So you do have a few different options up here. Most of these are going to be found though in your character panel as well. And you're going to have more choices in the character panel than you would at the top, except for this one right here. This one right here is going to be your warped text. And if you click on it, it's going to give you the option to warp the text a little bit. So you can play with it. You can create an arch. You can create like the flag, waves. So there's some different things in this one as well. And so this is a good little tool to know. It's right here. I always say it's the T with the frowny face. So it's right up in here. The rest of these, let's go over them in the character panel. Okay, so when you come over to your character panel, it should be right here in your properties, or it's the A that we added on right here to our option bar. I'm sorry, to our panel bar. So it's right here, and then this is the paragraph one. So they're in both places. So the first thing that you're going to see up here under the word character is going to be your font. That's the font that you're using. It's actually the font family. Okay, so you have this nice little drop down. Here are all the preset fonts that you have. Yours is going to look different at the top because these are recently used ones, but you should have most of these that are down here. And what you can do, what's really nice is you can look through here and be all like, oh, I kind of like the way this one looks, or I like the sample of this one. So they do give you some little samples that you can look at, which really makes it helpful. The next thing that you have on here is going to be your types of fonts. So this is your font styles. So under Lemon Milk, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 styles. Okay, so you can go everything from light to a bold italic. Okay, there's also in other fonts, there might be black. Which black just means even thicker. It's a thick font. There's one called normal under some fonts. So each font has at least one style. Sometimes it's just a regular. Okay, so if you go under some of these other ones, like this one right here, it does not give you any other options. You can see the little arrow is grayed out. So that's something to keep in mind when you're looking for fonts, is how many styles it has to go with it. Are you going to need a different style, or is the style that you're looking at going to be what you want it? So that's just something to keep in mind. Now, I have seen fonts that have all the way up to like, I think the biggest one I saw was 94 different styles to it. And I accidentally hit this, so let me delete this off real quick. Okay, so you can have things that have just 1 or 2 styles, and then you can have ones that have up to 100 apparently. So it's just really what you're looking for what you're working on in your project. Now, here is going to be where you can adjust your size. You can do the drop down. The drop down only goes to 72, but if you did want to make it bigger, you just highlight over it and you can type on it, okay, to whatever size you need. Now, you can do Control T, the transformation tool, and transform it this way. Now, as long as you keep your aspect ratio, it's not going to do anything to your letters. But if you don't, then it can cause distortion. And remember that we're working in a program that has pixelation to it. So depending on how you distort it, it could have some pixelation. The next one over on your character panel, this is going to be in between your lines. So if you have a paragraph with multiple sentences, this is how much space is in between each of those lines going down. Then you have your kerning and your leading, and these are right here. These are going to be the space between the actual letters themselves, and you can make adjustments to those. You can change the color right here. So just by clicking on it, you can change the color of your letters. Next one down, you do have these three little dots. And by clicking on those three little dots, you can open up a couple more options down here. You have where you can stretch your letters height-wise, so you can make them taller or shorter. You have where you can stretch your letters to make them fatter or thinner. And what it does is, depending on how many letters you have with these, well, especially with the horizontal scale tool, if you stretch them, sometimes it won't stretch them evenly. So you have to pay attention to how that's working as well. This one does stair steps. So it'll allow you to step up your letters. Again, we have color, you know, if you want a language other than English. Next down is going to be your paragraph. This is where you're going to find your justifies. So you can do right, center, left, or you can do so that you have a block. You can also add hyphenation in here. Let's go back up. And then type options. Under type options, this is really nice because some fonts will come, like this font that I'm on right now is called Lemon Milk. It's one that I downloaded. You can, it's all font. It's all caps all the time. If you were working in a regular font, like let's say Arial or Times New Roman, you would have one capital and the rest would be lowercase letters. If you just got through it and decided you wanted it all in caps, you could just click this button. It would make everything in caps. Or you have this option where it makes your, what would be your lowercase letters just smaller caps. You can subscript and superscript. You can underline, you can strike through. So all those normal things, you have a lot of different options right here. You can also, you know, do your like firsts. So you have a little ST that flies up. You have fractions, all those things that you would need for a text. Okay. So back to our font families though. So whenever you have font families, you can do one of two things to get more. Right now you have a limited number of presets. If it's not what you're looking for, you can, you can go to a website like dafont.com and you can download free ones. Another good one is 1001 fonts. So if you scroll down through here, you can see that it has, you know, different options for you. You can choose by different headers if you want. You can also search for some. And then if you come into one of these, like let's say I know I want something that's kind of cartoony, I'll go into there and then I can type in my word that I plan on using the font on. And submit. And then it's going to show me what that word would look like in those fonts. Now, this comes in really handy. One of the things I always suggest though is if you're going to be using any numbers, that you make sure that you type those numbers in to see what they look like before, because there will be different types of numbers, some that kind of float weird, some that shift up, some that shift down. So you want to make sure that the numbers are what you're looking for. And some fonts don't even have numbers. Now, most of these you can download for free. You can use them for personal use, which means you could use them for classes. Some of them tell you that you do have to like make a donation or that you can't use them for commercial use or blah, blah, blah. So you just have to make sure you read those things. So Dafont or 1001 Fonts are two really good sites for that. And I'm going to add those to my helpful sites page just so you guys can have them. Now, another thing you can do is go to your Creative Cloud. Creative Cloud now allows fonts to be used as long as you're signed into their program. So if you come into your Creative Cloud, this is my little desktop icon. I just double clicked on it and you come down here to manage fonts. You're going to get this screen, and this screen is going to show you the fonts that you currently have. Okay, so yours is going to look slightly different than mine because I have fonts that I've added. You can see the active fonts. You can also see previously active. So if you decide to turn off a font because you don't want to use it anymore, then it'll show up under your previously active and you can reactivate it if you ever need to. Also, you can come up here to browse more fonts, and it's going to send you to the Adobe font website, and it gives you all kinds of like craziness. So I was actually looking for fonts for, last thing I was doing on here was looking for fonts for this assignment that we're going to do. We're going to do a assignment with Lego. So what I did was I typed in the word Lego here so I could see them all. And there is a font called Lego out there. You can download it for free. The problem with it was that it's a outline font and I want to be able to fill the font in. That's part of what we're doing. So I was trying to find something close to it. So I came in here, I knew the Lego font was rounded, so I hit the round it button. I knew that I didn't want any kind of serif with it, so I clicked that, and then I also clicked that I wanted it fat so I could find the font that I wanted, okay? So let's go through these different things over here on the left-hand side. So you can choose by tags, so maybe you know that you want something that's a black letter, a more like stronger, thicker letter, or you want something that is considered a little more luxurious, or you want something that's horror. So you can kind of click in these areas. Again, if you type your word up here, it helps a lot whenever you get down here and start picking. Okay, the next is classification. So we have sans serif, which means without feet. So that's going to be like your Arials. You have serif, which means with feet. So that's going to be like your Times New Roman. You have script, which is going to be a little bit more fancy handwriting, kind of cursive-y. And then you also have the one down here that's handwriting. That's going to be more like those Comic Sans and those basic kind of like handwritten fonts. Then if you come down further, you have where you can choose how many font families. So if you know that you're going to need multiple font families in it, you can change it right here. You can change the weight, the height, the width, the contrast. You can also do your like standard caps like I showed you earlier on the lemon. Okay, and then how your numbers fall. So you can see that, you know, these are kind of in a straight line. These kind of have that jig-jag to them. So if you're looking for something that looks a little bit more fancy, sometimes you want that little appeal to them. Now, another thing that you can do in this system, which is really, really nice, is you can come up here and you click on this little camera right here. And I don't have anything to open, but you can choose something that you have that has text in it and hit open, and it'll scan it and it'll find the closest font that it has to it. Okay, so it'll kind of give you an idea of where to start from and kind of pick that font. Now, it's not always the exact same, but a lot of times they'll find like the closest 3 or 4 to it. So that's really nice. Now, one of the things we're going to do is we need a specific font to use for this project today. So we're going to go ahead and do that while we're in here. And the font that I found that was closest was Dita. D-I-T-A. So go ahead right here in the search, type it, and then we're going to click on here for top family results. Okay. So when you come to it, it's going to pull this up right here, and we can kind of scroll down through here. And this family has, I didn't even count how many it had, 30 different fonts right here. Okay, so 30 types of fonts or font styles. What we want is something that's going to look like the Lego logo. So I'm going to type in the word Lego and hit my tab key. Now you can kind of go down through here and see the different types of fonts. Now the one that I found that was closest is called DITA CD Extra Bold, which was right here. And all you're going to do is click this little thing to activate it. So see, it should look like this and say activate font. We're going to activate it. So turn it blue. Then you're also going to do that to the bold italic right here. So turn that one blue as well. Okay, so that means both of those are activated. You should have a little screen that pops up across the bottom that says that you've activated fonts. Now, if we go back into Photoshop, whenever you come up here, you should be able to just start typing DITA, and it's going to pull up the ones that we just loaded in there. And since we only loaded 2, it's going to only load those 2. Now, if you wanted the whole family, you can do that as well. You can just come up here to after the name, it says activate fonts, and you can choose which ones you want to activate. Okay, so now that we have our fonts activated, let's go back to Photoshop. Now we're going to start on a brand new document. We're going to create a poster this time. So I'm going to close out this hello that I did to show you guys. We're going to go to File, New. I'm going to go to Print, and I want to do 11 by 17. And this is lesson 7, so I'm going to change the name of this. Whoops, I'm all in caps. And 11 by 17. We want it to be on portrait style, 300, and hit create. Now we've created this new document. Now we're going to do a couple different things with text. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to type that word Lego. Lego. And it doesn't matter what color it's in right now. We're going to put images into it so that we can see, we're going to actually see Legos inside of the word Lego. So over here in our character panel, we want to use that font that we just loaded. So it's going to be DITA, and we want the extra bold italic. Boom. Okay. Now, looks pretty close to the word Lego and the way the Lego brand is. So we're pretty right there. Now, what I want to do is I want to include inside of this word Lego some actual Legos. First, though, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Let's try 150. Now, let's go closer to maybe 250. Here we go. Let's do 250 for your size. I'm going to move it right about here. And then I'm going to do Control Plus, and I'm going to zoom in so you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. Okay. So now I want to put those Legos inside of it. So I gave you guys some Legos in your zip file. So I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to open. I'm going to go ahead and open up the head and open up the Legos that I gave you and hit open. Now we don't need the head yet, but we're going to need it in a little bit. So I went ahead and opened it now. Now with the Legos open, I'm going to do Control A and Control C, and I'm going to go to lesson 7 and Control V it. And then I need to downsize this, so Control T, and I'm just going to shrink it down. Now, if you want to zoom out for a little bit, just so you can see, that's fine. But I'm just going to put it in here right over like this. And if I zoom out on my opacity, you can see that my words are covered. I don't want to like squish the box at all because it's going to deform the Lego. So we're going to leave it just like this, and I'm going to take it back up. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to create a mask, and there's a couple different ways of doing this. So I want to do this, just watch, don't do it with me. I just want to show you kind of what happens. So if we were to do it the easy way, which would be to do Control and click on the little T of the Lego layer, you can see it selects all of them, and then I could open up my layer 1, and I could do select and inverse and hit delete. And now my Legos are in my Legos. What's the problem with this? One, it was destructive. So all the extra Legos are now gone. It also, if I spelled the word Lego wrong, I couldn't fix it because it's now an image file or an image layer. Also, what if I don't like the way these Legos look right here and I wanted to change it, or these are a little too out of focus and I want to change that? I can't. It is what it is now. Okay. So I'm going to Control Z and go back. Okay. So there's another way of doing this, and this way is so much easier. So what you're going to do is actually create you're going to mask them together. You're going to create a clipping mask. So you want the word Lego on bottom, and you want that layer, and I'm going to type in white Legos for the name on this. Okay, just so I know what they are. Now I want these white Legos to be on top, and I'm simply going to create a clipping mask. This works with shapes, it works with selections, it works with a lot of different things. So all you have to do is press and hold the Alt key. Now you'll see my little cursor looks like a little hand pointing. If I press and hold the Alt key and I just slide my cursor up till it's in between the two lines for these two layers, you're going to see it turns from a pointing hand to a square with an arrow, and I just click. Okay, I'm going to do that one more time. A lot of people have a hard time with this part. So press and hold Alt, slide your cursor in between the two layers to the line between the two layers, and your cursor is going to change to a square with an arrow, and click. Now what you can do is if I grab my move tool up here, as long as I'm on the white Legos panel, I can still move it. And I can find the Legos that I want to have fit inside of there. Or if I'm on the Lego text layer and I wanted to change the way I have this, so maybe I wanted it to be lowercase, I could respell it and it doesn't affect anything. Okay, so it creates this nice layer. What I need to do next though is if you've noticed, let me see, I have it pulled up here. The Lego logo has this like black line around it. So we have the white letter. So let's do the black line around it. So select your text layer, come down to FX, do stroke, and we're going to change this to black, which is it all F's? Nope, that's white. It's all, type in right down here where the number sign is, type in all zeros. So 6 zeros. And that'll give you true black. So down here on the bottom of the color picker, type in 6 zeros and hit OK. And then on size, make sure it says 20. Position, we want outside. And hit OK. Okay, so now we have that, but now we need a yellow one around it as well. So we're going to add another effect. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to actually add that to another layer just so that we can move it or adjust it if we need it to. So I'm going to close my background. So close the little eye on your background. Click the white Legos layer. Press and hold Alt, Control, Shift, and E. Now what we did was we created a new layer that is a combination of the white Legos and the Lego layer. So if we were to close those, we would still see them. But now we can add a new stroke, same way, the little FX on the bottom, stroke, and we can make this one, we're going to click on the color, and we're going to change it to yellow. So I need to go back to my picker. There we go. And I'm going to pick a yellow, nice bright yellow. Okay, and hit OK. And now I have the word Lego. Now, by doing it this way, if for some reason we change our mind on any part of this, we still have our originals down here. So we didn't actually mess up anything. This is just adding a stroke to what we already had. Okay, I'm going to Control 0 to get all the way back out. And I'm going to come down to my shape tools, and I'm going to do a rectangle tool. And I'm going to draw a great big red box. So I'm just going to draw a box with that shape tool. And I'm going to change my fill color over here in the properties panel to red. And if you want a true red, you can do right here under RGB and just get that pure red, which is what Legos is. And then drag that down below our layer 1. Now, again, I'm going to make my word Lego a little bit bigger. So I'm going to take this layer 1 and Control T and just increase the size a little bit. There we go. So we're not too bad. A little bit different, but not too bad. Okay. Next, we're going to add in that head. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to use my my magic wand, and I'm going to select the background, and it's going to get rid of all that negative space, and do select and inverse, Control C, Control V, and then I'm Control T, and I'm going to make him nice and big. Okay, so I'm going to kind of put him down in here a little bit, hit my check mark, and my plan was to have him peeking out from behind the logo. So I'm going to kind of move him down like this. You can do it however you want, your design. Now I'm going to select this layer 1 up here again, just because I want what I'm adding to go above it. So next thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to type on a path. So it's really easy to understand. With type, you can do a couple different types. So first of all, let me just show you a couple different things. So you can type like this, where you just click on the page and you click once, you let go, you can type in whatever you want, and you can move it, you can adjust it, you can make changes to it. Okay, that's one thing. Second thing you can do is, you know that we have to keep our type within this area right above here. So what you can do is click and drag and create a text box. Then whatever you type in here has to fit within that box. Okay, now this limits a lot of people because of the fact that what it does is it forces you to stay within that area. You couldn't see my text because it was too big. It wouldn't fit in that area. So I had to down the size of my text so it fits in that area. Okay. So the box is really nice because it keeps you in a certain area, but it can be a pain because it keeps you in a certain area. So you just have to be aware of that. Okay. I'm going to delete that one. The third way that you can do this is you can create a path. Now, we haven't really talked about the pen tool a whole lot, but we're going to use it just for a quick minute, just so we can make a path really easily. So I'm going to zoom up, and I'm going to grab my pen tool, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer, just because it's easier to get to that pen tool if you have it on its own layer. Then I'm going to come right down here, and I'm going to click once and let go with my pen tool. And then I will come right about here. I'm going to press shift so I have a straight line. I'm just going to keep holding shift so I can keep that straight line. And I'm going to go all the way around and get pretty close to where I was on the other side. So there we go. And then I'm going to hit, oops. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to grab my text tool, and I'm going to move my text tool, which is like this little square with a little eye in it. I'm going to move it over the top of that path. And I'm going to click, and you can already see an L there. Okay, if you don't see one there, it's completely okay. I'm going to show you how to fix it. So what it does is this, whenever you're typing in this program, it can it can make you stay in one certain area, which can kind of be a pain in the tush. And you need to be able to move that. So I'm going to grab my path selection tool, which is right below the type tool. It's the black arrow. And now if I move that cursor towards it, I'll see this little line with an arrow. Whoops. And I want to drag it, but I want to make sure I stay on the side of the line that I want the text to stay on. If you flip it over, it's going to make all your text go upside down, which sometimes you might want, but we don't want it for right now. So make sure your cursor stays on the outside of this line. And I'm going to push it down here to the end. Now I can grab my text tool, and I'm going to type in one of their little sayings is, build, whoops, I didn't select everything. Let me delete all that extra text. Build the world is one of Lego's sayings. And now I'm just gonna kind of hit my check mark. Now, because I'm still on that layer, I can make adjustments to it. So now I want to change my font family to bold italic, my style. It's just going to make it a little bit thinner. And I'm going to up the size of my text. Now I want to go up to bigger because I want to show you what happens when you type on a path. So now by typing on a path, this may not be the best design because I went so straight, but you can see that it's going to wrap it around the design. You can also come back in here and hit spacebar, stuff like that, to get it to where it'll be what you want it to look like. Okay, so you can kind of play with it and adjust it and make it fit. Now, if you didn't want to do that shape, I just did that shape because it was the top of the head. You could grab that pen tool, and once we use the pen tool a little bit more, it's going to make a little bit more sense. You can use the pen tool and kind of do a wavy line, or you could, you know, you can even use the shape tool. So I'm going to go out of this one and kind of push this out of the way for a minute. We could even do a shape tool where let's do an ellipse and draw the ellipse right here. And again, it doesn't matter what color it is. Grab my text tool, put it on the ellipse, and it'll wrap my text around it. Then I can, you know, again, grab that path tool and I can move this. So my starting point is somewhere different. And it's starting to be a little difficult. There we go. So I can move it like this. I could down the size of it a little bit. So maybe go down to like 100. I can change. Oh, I can change my shape, come back down to my shape, or I can just turn it off. And there it is. So you have this nice curve. So I want you to go ahead, just play with it, see what kind of path you want to build on. You can build on an actual path with the pen tool. You can build on the shape. It's up to you, but just kind of play with it and finish designing your poster. Now I'm going to turn my white back on. So there is my poster for you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to try and answer them for you. And you're going to turn this in as a JPEG. So remember, you have to flatten all the images, flatten it again, flatten image, and save it as a JPEG. And that's what you're going to turn in for typographic design for this lesson.